Hello, today we'll be studying about our third chapter. So, we have completed 2 episodes of this series, and this will be the third series actually. So, today our content to study is the excretory process in human beings, right? So, when it comes to excretory process, before we go into the process of excretion, we should have to know about metabolism, what metabolism is. So when we speak about metabolism, it means all the biochemical reactions that happen inside the body. So whatever the chemical reaction that occur within our body, we can term it as metabolism. For example, yesterday we studied about respiration. So cellular respiration is one type of metabolism, where we have end products such as, for example, when we burn glucose, or when we combine glucose with oxygen and we start burning it up, we have carbon dioxide, water and ATP molecules or energy. So in that case, we understand that we have some sort of a biochemical reaction that happens within us. Another thing that we can consider is the protein metabolism, which happens within the liver. So in these particular reactions, or biochemical reactions to be exact, we have some waste products. For example, in cellular respiration, what do you think is the waste product of cellular respiration? Yes, you might be correct. It is carbon dioxide, right? Because carbon dioxide was a product that we discussed yesterday. Similarly, when we digest protein, we get urea and uric acid and nitrogenous products as waste products. So these waste products have to be excreted from our body, because if we start accumulated waste in the body, it might cause malfunction in the body, to be exact. So excretion actually is the removal of these excretory products. So these products are an output, or these are produced during metabolism that happens in the body. So if somebody asks you what excretion is in terms of biology, it is the removal of excretory products that are produced during metabolism in the body. So that is what happens. So from the body we are removing these waste products, right? Now let us look at which organs are helpful, or which organs make up the excretory unit of our body. So we have lungs, which we studied yesterday. We know that the excretory materials of lungs are carbon dioxide and water vapor, as we discussed yesterday, and the format is, it is exhaled as gas or gaseous matter or air. And then today our main focus will be on kidneys. So this urinary system, it will help us to excrete urea, uric acid, some salts and water, and the form is in the form of a liquid which we call as urine. Then we have skin. The skin also excrete the same thing, but the format is what we call as sweat. So these are the main organs that are involved in human excretion, right? Now we have to understand if feces, as you can see feces, we have to understand whether this is an excretory substance. Now can you tell me, in which system did we study about feces? In which system? Yeah, digestive system, right? We studied about feces in the digestive system. So as you can see, feces means actually these are undigested materials that are available or that are there in our system. So what happens is this particular feces is not excreted from or not a result of biochemical reaction, because digestion is not a process of biochemical reaction. So we cannot consider feces to be an excretory substance, because if it is an excretory substance, it should be excreted as the result of a biochemical reaction. As we do not consider digestion to be some sort of reaction such as this, we cannot consider feces to be an excretory substance. Is it clear to you? Right. Next, we will be studying about the human urinary system. The human urinary system. I have included a photo as well in this case, so that it might be easy for us to understand. So the main parts of the human urinary system are, we do have a pair of kidneys. You can see we have 1 and 2. So this is a pair of kidneys, and whatever the excretion that comes out of kidney, which we call as urine, they will pass through this ureter. So we have a pair of them, each attached to each kidney, and then to store that we have a bladder. So the bladder will store urine, and finally it will be passed out through urethra. So these are the main parts of the human urinary system. Right. So if we take the kidney, for example, if we consider just one kidney, the shape and the longitudinal cross section is given to you here. We can see it is divided into two parts. We have the cortex and we also have the medulla. So if you take the cross section of one of these, if you enlarge one of these triangular shaped structures, which actually it's not triangular, it's pyramidal shaped structures, we call them as renal pyramids. So these renal pyramids can be will consist of nephrons. So nephrons are basically the functional and structural unit of kidneys. As we have studied about cells, cells are the basic structural and functional unit of all living organisms. Similarly, nephrons are the basics of kidneys. So when we go a bit deeper, we can understand that if you take a particular nephron, you have the afferent arteriole and you have the efferent arteriole that collects everything out. And then we can see that there are some parts that we can identify. A part that is given to you here, we call this as glomerular capsules or glomerulus, which is the network of capillaries that is available, and this capsule we call that as Bowman's capsule. According to the syllabus, that is the name that is given to here. Here we call it as glomerular capsule, but according to your syllabus we can call it as Bowman's capsule as well. Then we also do have a loop, which we call as loop of Henle. So we have the descending and the ascending loop, which you do not have to learn in detail right at the moment. And then we have the collecting duct as well, where the urine will flow into the renal pelvis. So these are the main structures or the main parts that we can find within the nephron. So you can see that it is highly vascularized, so that we have a lot of blood capillaries running around as a network. So this is highly efficient and important for us to form or make urine and also do the functions properly. Let us see what are the process or how the urine is made. So the process of urine formation, there are actually 3 steps when urine is formed. The first one we call it as ultrafiltration or glomerular filtration. We can call it in both of these terms. One is ultrafiltration or we can call it as glomerular filtration, and the second one we call it as selective reabsorption. So that means we don't absorb everything, we select some of those stuff and then we reabsorb them. And then the third one is secretion. Secretion is where some of those stuff that we have reabsorbed, we don't need it, we just send it back. So these are the main three processes of formation of urine. Right. Now let us look at the first one, which is ultrafiltration. Right. Now I'll ask you a question. Can you see these two tubes that is available here? Can you see these two tubes? Yes, we call this as arterioles. We call this as afferent arteriole and the efferent arteriole. Now what can you say about the difference between these two? What is the difference, main difference that you can see visually? Yeah, one is thin and the other isn't. Other is a bit thicker. So thin and thick. So that is the main difference between these two, and that is quite important for us. We can see that blood is flowing through this particular thicker one, and then it is collected through the thinner one. So this particular network that you can see, that is formed from the capillaries, or the originated from the capillaries of arteriole, especially afferent arteriole, we call this network as glomerulus. This glomerulus is a network of capillaries where you get blood. That means the blood flows through that. So due to the pressure difference that you can see, because you can see this is higher in diameter and this is lower in diameter, because of this cross sectional area difference, what happens is there is a pressure difference between these two arterioles. So as there is a pressure difference, what will happen is the stuff or some of the stuff will be filtered out of these capillaries. Whatever that is filtered out is collected in this particular vacuum or this cavity. This cavity is known as the cavity of Bowman's capsule. So this capsule is what we call as Bowman's capsule or glomerular capsule. So we can see that whatever the substance or the filtrate that is coming out and it is stored here will be collected and sent out. So what is the constituency of this? What are the stuff that is available here? We can see there is water, and then there is glucose, amino acids, urea, hormones, drugs, vitamins and ions. So these things will be filtered out in the glomerulus or the Bowman's capsule. This is the first step of this particular process of formation of urine. So is the first stuff clear to you? Is the first step okay? Right, let's go for the next step. The next step is what we call a selective reabsorption. So in this case, most of the stuff that was filtered out will be reabsorbed. So one thing that we have to know absolutely is that all glucose will be reabsorbed. So no glucose will be left within. Almost all glucose, almost 100% of glucose have to be reabsorbed back into the blood circulatory system or back into capillaries. And vitamins and amino acids also have to be reabsorbed. Around 90% of the water that was filtered will also be reabsorbed here. And some of the salts and urea and uric acid, depending on the need, will be reabsorbed. So the reason that we call it as selective reabsorption is because the materials that we have to absorb back into the circulatory system is selected. That means we don't reabsorb everything, but only selected amount of materials. So if a patient is suffering from diabetes, the glucose will not be fully reabsorbed. In that case, he might have or she might have a certain amount of glucose within them. Let us look at this criteria. Now you can see in this photo clearly. So after passing through the Bowman's capsule, glucose, amino acids, protein, vitamins, then lactate, urea, uric acid and some ions such as sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium chloride and bicarbonate, water, those things are reabsorbed. And then some drugs are pumped in as well, isn't it? And some of you can see whatever the things that are absorbed out and whatever the stuff that is pumped in from here as well. So this pumping in process is what we call as secretion. So after absorbing some of those things, we have to actively send something back in because we don't need them, or it may be in excess in our body. So whatever that is in excess will be sent out. For example, H plus will be sent out. Then K plus, potassium, will be sent out. Then ammonium will be sent out. Creatinine, this will be sent out. Then some drugs and vitamin B will be sent out. So these things have to be secreted actively back into the system. So this is what we call as secretion. Now can you tell me what are the three main processes in formation of urine? Can you remember those things? Good. Ultrafiltration is the first thing. Okay. Then selective absorption, secretion and selective absorption. But when we write, it's better to write in the order that it is given here. For example, the first one, as you said, is ultrafiltration or glomerular filtration, and the second one being active reabsorption, active tubular reabsorption is okay, and secretion or tubular secretion, right? So this is the formation of urine. Now let us see how urine is removed from the body. It should be from it. I have given it as form. This is a small mistake. Anyway, the urine will be formed in kidney. So do you need two kidneys or can you live with just one kidney? What is your view? Two is better. That is why you are equipped with two. But even with one kidney you may survive. A healthy adult can survive with one kidney, so it's okay. So I don't mean to tell you that you have to sell your kidney or anything, but it is just a fact. Anyway, so the urine that is produced will pass out from the kidney to the ureter. You have a pair of these and a pair of these as well, and then it will be stored in the bladder. An adult human, usually when he is healthy or she is healthy, there is a capacity to store around 220 milliliters of urine. It may vary from person to person, but the average is 220 ml for an average adult. And then finally when the need arises, you may pass it through the urethra. So the composition of urine, it is almost 96% of water. So there is nothing else. There is almost 96% of water, and there may be around 2% of salts that we just excreted, like the stuff that we just saw earlier, like some salts and ions, potassium and ammonium ions and stuff like that. Then we have a 2% of urea, and we have very trace amount of uric acid and creatinine. Sometimes when we hold the urine in, which means that even though we have the urge to pass out, sometimes maybe with regard to some reason we may not be able to do that. In that case, the composition may be changed. What would happen is the amount of or the percentage of water might decrease. So that is one of those things that we have to take care of. Right. Now finally, let us look at the diseases that are associated with our urinary system or the urinary tract. So we will be discussing about three main diseases according to your syllabus. One is the renal failure or the kidney failure that we call as. Then we have nephritis and calculi or kidney in calculi in kidney, or you can say stones, kidney stones, or it can be in bladder as well. So these are the three main diseases that we are going to discuss in this topic. Renal failure, yes, Yes, chronic kidney disease, in fact, is where it falls under renal failure. That means acute renal failure can be termed as chronic kidney disease because it's very dangerous as well, right? Anyway, let's do the discussion in that case as well, right? Renal failure, nephritis, and calculi, right? Anyway, let's start with the first thing, the renal failure stuff. What happens is our kidneys fail to function. So the main reason for this failure can be some sort of infection due to some microorganism. It can be a virus, bacteria, or some sort of other microorganism that we find around. So whatever the reason, an infection might occur. And there can be some deposition of heavy metals such as arsenic or mercury. These metals also can accumulate within the renal pyramids, renal area, and in kidneys, and it might cause problems as well. And some medicines, these also might have a side effect or might be one of the main causes in this case for renal failure. And finally, carbon tetrachloride. Specifically, this is mentioned because this is one of those culprits that is there, and these people are very dangerous, to be honest. So carbon tetrachloride, if consumed, can cause renal failure. So how can we identify whether we have renal failure or not? One of the main problems that many patients might feel is increase in blood pressure. So increase in blood pressure is normal for most of the, or one of the symptoms of most of the diseases. For example, if you have some problems related to your cardiac system, the heart, you can have an increased blood pressure. Or if it has to do with some diabetes condition, you might have heart pressure. Similarly, blood pressure or the increase of blood pressure is also one of the symptoms of renal failure. The other one is edema. So edema is a condition where your body becomes bloated, like it is full of water. So when it is full of water, it's like sponge. When you press it down, you can still see the mark in the body. So a bloated condition in the body can also occur because of renal, like as the water retention might be very high. So if we don't treat renal failure, if it is not identified in an early stage, within around 14 to 15 days, it might turn into acute renal failure. And it might, as you said, it might take you to that chronic condition where it may not be a reversible condition, to be honest. And then in that case, what we can do is we can either replace the kidneys, or we can ask somebody to donate a kidney based on their blood groups and stuff like that. There are a lot of procedures that takes place. Or we can connect ourselves to a machine, a dialysis machine, where the system or the blood is filtered out using a machine. So a dialysis machine, can do the work of the kidney, but not as accurately as the kidney. So that is one thing to know of as well. And the second thing that we have to study in this case is nephritis. Nephritis, where the kidneys become bloated or a swelling of kidney happens. This is caused due to toxins and infections. So accumulation of toxins within the body and storage of them in the kidney, or infections such as from the microorganisms, it can be due to some allergies. So these things can cause nephritis. So what happens is, when these toxins and infections occur and when we might get swelling of kidney, it is possible that some of the capillaries or the blood vessels that is available within the kidney might leak or break because they are very thin. So there is a high possibility that our glomerulus is damaged. Glomerulus, which is found in the kidney, we spoke about nephrons, that is why we call it as nephritis. So these nephrons, within the nephrons we know that there are some parts that we discussed earlier. So Bowman's capsule or glomerular capsule, in that we have a network of capillaries which we call as glomerulus. This can be damaged. So because of this damage, what might happen is the amount of blood that flows will reduce. So there will be a lower blood flow. So as the blood flow is lower or slowed down, the amount of urine that is filtered out will also be lower because there is not enough to filter out. So finally what will happen is, as there is less blood flow, more waste might accumulate within our body. So as the amount of waste accumulates within the body, it might cause some severe problems, health hazards, and sometimes, if not identified and treated, even death, because our body becomes toxic. So as there are some damages that is in glomerulus, it is possible that some cells such as red blood cells, which we call as RBCs, might be excreted via urine, or proteins can also be excreted. So sometimes the people who are suffering from nephritis, it is possible that they might get blood in their urine as well. And one of the most common problems that we find is kidney stones or calculi in kidney or bladder. So these kidney stones are basically calcium salts, source of calcium, especially calcium oxalate, CaC2O4, calcium oxalate.X. So CaC2O4 is an oxalate, that is the chemical formula for oxalate. So calcium oxalate. So calcium oxalate crystals are known as calculi in kidney or kidney stones. It can be calcium oxalate or calcium carbonate or calcium, one of those things which has to do with calcium. So to remove this, we can use surgery. If the amount of calcium oxalate that is stored here is very large and we cannot use any other method, we can use surgery. Or if it is something that can be dissolved, we can use some drugs. We can take in some drugs, and by drugs we can dissolve them. And there is another method which is known as lithotripsy. Lithotripsy is where by using the laser or some ultrasound waves, we crush the kidney stones. This is known as lithotripsy. So the main reasons for having this sort of a calculi in kidney, it can be related to postponing urination. Even when there is an urge, it is a voluntary act where we can postpone. If we start to postpone urination, it might cause some issues, and this issue might build up. As I told you, more and more water will be removed from the urine, and finally this will accumulate within the bladder, and this bladder might have a blockage and it might cause pains, and when we diagnose, we might be experiencing calculi in bladder. Another thing is dietary habits, consuming more nitrogen products related to nitrogen like lots and lots of proteins may not be good. That is why we should have a balanced diet where we have proteins, carbs, then green leaves and all sort of things, fats and stuff like that, where it is in a balanced way. So dietary habits can also be another reason. One other reason that I have failed to mention here is not drinking insufficient amount of water, that means not drinking enough water. So one of so we can find one of the preventive methods is where we drink more and more water. So if we drink enough amount of water, it will help us to prevent ourselves from falling into this particular disease. So in this lesson, what we have seen, go on. Yes, laser treatment is safe, but you should have to get the opinion of a medical professional, because laser treatment, we could say it is safe and at the same time it is not safe. The reason is because if there is a medical professional, he or she might be able to take your medical profile, and based on the profile they can assess whether it is safe for you. So that is why we mean by laser or ultrasound waves, they are safe or they are unsafe. That particular dilemma is most of the time has to do with the person, because sometimes if a person has some allergies to some other stuff or they have some other diseases, so that should be diagnosed by a medical person with a medical background. Okay. Right. Okay. Anyway, so what we studied today was, we studied about excretory system. Specifically, we studied about the system that is related to urine or urinary system. So we studied what excretion is, and we also studied what we learned about the parts of the excretory system and urine especially, and what are the constituents of urine, and we also went through the diseases related to this particular excretory system. So now, do you have any questions related to this?